Hello, friend, and welcome back to the She Lives Purposefully podcast, a place for you to be encouraged and equipped. I am so glad that you are here. I hope and pray that you were encouraged by this incredible episode, and I am so excited for it. We are continuing our Psalm 23 Bible study and the podcast today that I'm just, so stoked for. I realized that I think I forgot to mention this last week on our opening of the Psalm 23 podcast, but there is a Psalm 23 downloadable study that you can download for just $5 to follow along with. So I'm going to link that in the show notes for you. And it's just something that you can download. It's a digital download. And people have sent me photos or DMs, photos of them in DMs, like printing them out and writing in them, which is so incredible. So if you want to follow along in the study through that, I highly recommend downloading that study. But it's been so cool too because a lot of you have already done that, and I think that I forgot to mention it. I'm not sure, maybe I did, but if I didn't, I'm going to link that in the show notes for you. But I'm so excited for the study. Psalm 23 is one of my favorite books or chapters in the Bible. It's a study that has given, or a book that has given me so much peace, and the Lord has really, really, really used this book in my own life in times when I really needed just his peace and comfort and direction and just reassurance that he is my good shepherd and that he is the one who guides me. And I'm so in love with the portion of the chapter that we're going to be talking about today. It is so powerful, so good, so peace-giving, reassuring. So if you are going through a time where you just don't know what's next, or maybe you are, maybe looking for direction, or you are trying to figure everything out by yourself and you feel like I can't do it all alone, or maybe you're feeling anxious, any of those things, this is such a good portion for you. We are going to be talking about how much is actually in the Lord's hands and not in our hands. And he's just so good for making life that way, in which we can really just trust in him. So I'm really excited for today's episode and diving into this portion of Psalm 23. As always, we are going to read all of Psalm 23, the whole chapter, which is pretty short, so it's not too long, but we're going to read it all so we have it in context there. But before we begin, I am excited to tell you about a sponsor for today. This is our only sponsor for today, and I have a deal with them for you, so be sure to keep your ears peeled. The podcast today is sponsored by Faithful Counseling, and She Lives Purposefully podcast listeners get 10% off your first month when you sign up at faithfulcounseling.com/She Lives Purposefully. I will link that for you in the show notes. But life is full of twists and turns and moments of growth, but also moments where we feel like we're taking a few steps back, and it's important to show up for yourself and your loved ones through all of the struggles that life can bring. Faithful Counseling will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist who is a practicing Christian. It's not a crisis line, it's not self-help, it's professional counseling done securely online. I've always supported others going to counseling, but honestly, I didn't think that I needed it until a couple of years ago. But when I went for the first time, counseling changed my life. But the most important factor of that is that my counselor was a Christian, and she brought the Lord, his word, his perspective, and prayer into all of our conversations and all of our meetings. And Faithful Counseling provides you with Christian counselors. So that is like supreme, so important. At Faithful Counseling, you can log into your account at any time and send a message to your counselor and schedule weekly video or phone sessions so that you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. Faithful Counseling is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed until you find the right fit for you. And we actually talk about that on a past episode, and I can link that in the show notes too, finding the right fit for you in Christian counseling. So it's so cool because Faithful Counseling does that and really emphasizes that. It is affordable, more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. We all need to talk to someone and Faithful Counseling can help. Visit faithfulcounseling.com/She Lives Purposefully and get the professional faith-based counseling that you deserve. She Lives Purposefully podcast listeners, again, get 10% off your first month at faithfulcounseling.com/She Lives Purposefully. Thank you again to Faithful Counseling for sponsoring this episode. So definitely go check them out if you have been debating going to counseling, starting counseling. Faithful Counseling is a great space to do that in. Plus, you get a discount for your first month with She Lives Purposefully. So definitely jump on that. Okay, so let's dive into the study for today. I'm going to read Psalm 23. This is the English Standard Version, the ESV version if you want to follow along in your own Bibles, or if you just want to listen, that is great too. So this is Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. I wanted to look today at those two verses together, those two kind of lines together, because of the first letter of each sentence. He makes me lie down in green pastures, not I. He leads me beside still waters, not I. He restores my soul, not I. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake, not I. My God takes care of me. Your God takes care of you. Our God takes care of us. He is the one bringing me to peaceful places, leading me, restoring me, and guiding me, and keeping me in righteousness. As the sheep, I am not called to do any of those things on my own. My shepherd does it for me. God wants me, God wants you to fully depend on him. I am free to take on the role of the sheep, to be fully dependent on my shepherd, to do all these things the verses say. I can trust him to do those things. I am free to cast my cares and burdens on him. I am free to let him lead. I am free to simply follow him. I am free to not worry. I am free to know that my life is in his hands. I am free to be at peace in the knowledge of the truth that he leads me. He brings me peace. He puts me in paths of righteousness, and he restores. He who is able to do more than we can ask or think. He does it. Friend, let's let the shepherd do his job. Let's fulfill our role and just follow him. Let's be at rest knowing that he will take me to peaceful places. Let's be at rest knowing that he restores. Let's be at rest knowing that he leads me in paths of righteousness for our good and for his glory. These are promises that I can cling to as I let Jesus lead, as I trust him as my shepherd. This is one of them. God will make me lie down in green pastures. God will lead me beside still waters. God will lead me in places of peace. God will bring me into seasons where I am to lie down, where I am to rest, where I am to be still and trust, where I can be free to let go and let God. These images in this chapter are so lush and calm and peaceful. This is where God leads his sheep. That is not to say, this is not a prosperity gospel chapter or message. That is not to say that God's sheep are without the storms of life. In fact, Jesus tells us to know that those storms will come, to count on it pretty much, but to also trust that he is in the boat with us, he is in the storm with us, and he does calm storms. We can cling to the promise that Jesus is with us in those storms and that he is leading. We can rest even in our storms, which is unbelievable. He doesn't give us false hope that there won't be storms, but he does tell us that we can rest in him in those storms. He can lead and we can follow and be still even in our storms. I hope that this was an encouragement to you today to trust him, to allow him to lead, to just be his sheep. I'm going to read through Psalm 23 one more time for you, and just thinking on those things about how he is the one who is our shepherd and we can just be his sheep and follow, keeping all that in mind as we read this chapter one more time. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and we'll dive into that next week, but I just love that too, because even though, like we talked about, there are green pastures, there is still waters, there is peace, it doesn't mean that there's not a valley of the shadow of death, but he leads us to these places and he walks with us. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So friend, whatever you are going through today, whether you are in the mountaintop seasons of life and everything is just feeling like blessing upon blessing, or maybe you are in the hardest, darkest, messiest storm you have ever been in your life, maybe the hardest season that you've ever gone through, the Lord is faithful. The Lord is your shepherd. The Lord is your guide. He wants to lead you, and he wants you to know that you can fully in the valley of the shadow of death, that you can fully depend on him to be the shepherd. You can fully step into the role of his sheep and just follow him, follow his voice, follow his leading, follow his rest as he leads you to those places, and to let him lead, let him guide, let him protect, let him defend. So I am praying for you today. I don't know what you're going through, but I do know that he is faithful, and he is a faithful shepherd. I have learned that in my own life through some of the worst things that I have gone through and just experienced, and I know coming out on the other side, and even still working through healing those things, the Lord is faithful, and he's a faithful shepherd. He is a faithful shepherd, and we are just called to be his sheep. So friend, I love you. I'm praying for you. Have a fantastic day. Live for Jesus and live purposefully. Have a great day, friends.